keep eating, but we're aware that where we're based here, it was a bit of trouble for some of you. 2 years ago, I was talking to some people and they'd caravan down from Queensland. And this was all part of their getting a tax deduction for their holiday, I suspect. I don't know how it actually came together. My name's Bruce Spangler, I'm the chairman of the company. The table I'm on, we've just been having a bit of a chat about the history of the vineyard, which is something like 23 years old, I think. Talking about Brian Bender over here. Brian's one of my co-directors, and Brian's been around in here in Guild and other things for a lot of that time and has a great history. So I think really all I'm doing is welcoming you, thanking you for coming. I'm delighted that the weather is as good as it is, because it didn't look like this this morning, certainly when I woke up and thought about it. I'm going to head over to Chris Day in a minute, so while I'm talking, I'll walk down here. Chris is a director of the company. He's also the
national. I'll speak today, and I'll try and not move too much, because for those of our fellow shareholders that can't get here, we're going to make sure that we upload this to our website so that everything that you know, they know. The way we break it up is Ash will talk about the business. As the CEO of Box, it's his responsibility. Nick McDonald, which I'll point to right behind me here. There you go. Nick McDonald, our long-serving manager, who just told me he's going on long-service leave, which I think is well deserved for a couple of months. Nick McDonald and Russell Schultz, wherever Russ is, over here on the barbecue, won't take any credit for anything, but he's been with you the whole 18 years that we've been with you as well. And then we've got Chris Dunn, who's on the camera today, also another long-serving favourite governance person, but in his traditional days he was another viticulturalist. Irene Cam, where Irene is, maybe in the back corner here. Wayne, Irene. Irene in charge of your shareholders and looking after you wherever she needs to. And today's effort is Helene here, who works for Ash and I, and she's done a sensational job today. I will thank the servants, but as one with my wife, I won't thank her. Anyway, we're very nice there. Anyway, so you've been introduced to all the directors, you've been introduced to the Kayinga and favourite people. We're here about 23 years after the vineyard was planted, and there's some great stories to tell about the vineyard, its longevity, its continued production that it provides, which is pretty uniform compared to other vineyards that we're involved with. They're more up like this and down. There's a couple of sub-stories that we'll tell you today that are to do with some particular country deciding that they needed to smack us on the hands, and so they chose the wine industry to destroy so that they could make a point. There's a whole lot of little things that we'll both talk about quickly and then let you ask questions. We're trying the best we can to be COVID compliant, but we'll also try and make sure that no one misses out on an opportunity to speak. So, as I said, Ash will talk about the vineyard and its performance and the fact that there's still 5 tonnes out there, but the rest of the vineyard is complete. I'll talk about the fact that the board of directors are working hard to make sure this is a sound investment that provides a distribution to you and make sure that there is cash flow coming out every year when we can afford to. When we can't afford to, we haven't, but other than that, we've tried to make sure that for those of you that have been with us a long time, there's something in the pocket to recognise that you are a shareholder beside your shareholders' wine allowance. As we call it, the shareholders' wine marketing allowance, because you are our ambassadors for selling wine, and we thank you for that. Today, we sit here and go, are we in a good project? And I think without doubt, and the directors discussed this yesterday at a strategy day and also a board meeting, we are in a good project. We have got good varieties, we have got good management. I'm not talking about Fable here, I'm just talking about Nick and his team. I'll add Fable if you want to without trying to take Ashley thunder away. But what I'm trying to suggest to you is We've weathered some pretty bad storms over the last 23 years in the wine industry. The perfect storm around the GFC. We were in a position in, I'll say, July last year, not being cocky, because we're never cocky, but we were very certain of our future for 2021. We were very certain that we had more homes for the fruit than we had fruit on the vines, and we didn't even know what our crop level was at that stage. And within a matter of 4 months, our world turned upside down. Now, I was surprised to hear today that a couple of people hadn't heard of what the Chinese have done to the Australian wine industry. But what I'll do is I'll try and give you the cook's tour and also the brevity version, because Bruce doesn't want me speaking too long, as he normally suggests. In a simple term, the Chinese government have a number of problems with the Australian government. And the list of their grievances has been published in our press, and there's a list of 11 or 12 long. What they did is they concocted a story that we've been selling wine over there for a long, long time at sub the cost of production in Australia. In other words, we've been taking our wine and we've been throwing it into their market at any price to try and solve our wine problem in our country. The mere fact that most of the people that, if there was any of this low price going on, were actually indigenous people to that country buying it off at a big rock bottom price they could buy it from us and then turning it into their own labels and selling it, doesn't seem to matter. But the long and the short of it is, the penalty was slapped upon us in October. It was a temporary penalty, which went from being a free trade partner with what was close to zero tax, might have been still somewhere between 0 and 14, to a tax of 218% penalty, plus then the internal taxes probably added another 15 to 20%. So all of a sudden, the cost of a bottle of wine, let's pick a Jacobs Creek at $7 or $8 in our shop here, went from being $7 or $8 in China to $25 in China. And that's the type of thing that effectively destroyed the market overnight. The Chinese people cannot afford to be paying $25 a bottle for an $8 bottle of wine. They can afford, as they wanted to move their wine consumption and their wine style and value proposition up, pay for that $8 bottle of wine, and they would use that as a special occasion. There are obviously the millionaires in China and the billionaires in China that can drink anything they want. But what we've actually heard with what the punitive taxes have done is we've hurt the people at the bottom of the chain that were aspiring to drink foreign wine from Italy and France and Australia and Chile. Now, that tax has been slapped on us for a period of 5 years. Australia has a choice to take it, lump it, and lose 40% of its export markets, or we have the opportunity to fight it in the World Trade Organization forum. Now, it's highly likely that if we won the battle, like we did the day before yesterday, we had the same similar type of battle with Canada and Quebec in particular, that it wouldn't do us any good because there'd be another way of actually having an invisible barrier to entry and we'd be kiboshed. So the government of the day have to choose between having a visible fight with China when they've already got all these other fights with China and these 12 points I talked about, or stand up for our industry, the wine industry, and go after them. Now they've gone after them in cotton? Barley. But whether they go after them in wine is still to be decided. They made another faux pas this week, which has only made us worse in the eyes of the Chinese government. There is no doubt that Chinese people at large want to drink Australian wine. They want to drink Australian Shiraz. Kayinga has Australian Shiraz, and a big part of who we sell to is taking that wine for export markets. So if we tie this back to where we are today, so that I don't keep going on too long, we are in a situation where all of the people that we want to sell to want our wine for international consumption as well as domestic consumption. And if that international consumption was 40% Chinese and that consumption channel is being taken away from us, then we have issues. And those issues will drive down to one thing as far as we're concerned. It puts our pricing under pressure to the level that we've not seen in the past 13 years. Now, I'll stop there in terms of talking about pricing and vintage and all those type of things. The last thing I'll say is to do with business, okay? We can't yet determine what we're going to look like at the 30th of June. It's just a little bit early to be able to do that. We've had the vintage we thought we were going to have, but not at the price we thought we were going to have. Therefore, the profitability is on a yield matrix of yield times price is lower than we thought. We've got two aspects to our business. We have the straight grape sale, and we have the wine sales that lag by anywhere between 12 months and 2 years. So we've got both aspects. Do the people that normally bought our wine as bulk wine want to buy that bulk wine to sell in the markets? Some of those markets were China, and the answer is probably no. Some of those markets are Australian domestic, and the answer will still be yes, but the price will be under pressure again because other people have the same wine to sell. And the other groups are non-China based export sales for other people in the world, which we're still in. So our two parts to our business, the non-branded wine and the grapes, will blend together. We still think after our board meeting yesterday, I think the chairman and the other director would say that, we have a good company, it has a good future, but our profitability is under pressure until the China syndrome sorts itself out. So we're strong with our bankers, we're very lowly geared. Basically, they love us, they love the way we operate, they love the way we have probity, they love the way we have a majority of independent directors on the board of Kayinga looking at the best interests of the company first and indirectly the shareholders, governance 101. And so our bankers are not going to be our problem. Our problem will be what price we can get for our very good C-grade fruit moving forward. So I'll stop there. I'll be part of the answers if you need me to the more business side, but Ash will be part of the answers for the technical questions. I'll hand over to him and he'll speak to you about how we went on a technical front and a business front from the last vintage.
On behalf of the Ops team, and Nick and Rusty and the Ops team working along, it's great to see such familiar faces there, a few new faces, which is lovely to see that some of you have been coming, we've got to know the journey over 20 years, so it's great to know you back here again. In particular, given the circumstances we're in nationally, globally with the pandemic as well. So, yeah, it's been an interesting period for us from an operational point of view. Chris has alluded to the situation with the China export market, but even prior to that, we were looking at last year, coming up with one of the driest years we'd ever had. We started this season in extremely favourable conditions. This year you've got a budget where we were expecting to only get a percentage of the water allocation and have to buy expensive water into the market. Fortunately, we had really great opening season rainfall. We had a situation where we're now buying water at one of the lowest prices that we've seen for a long time, and 100% water allocations. And I've stood in front of you over many years and talked a lot about that as far as your asset goes. So that was a fantastic start to the season. I was sitting back, getting to sort of pick and choose who I was selling the fruit to. We're pushing prices year on year. I was able to extract increased prices from a customer base. And then, as Chris alluded to in November, I described it almost as a permanent nuclear device that detonate under the industry, because overnight, I literally, the market dried up. And it's not necessarily a direct linear regression from, 40% of our exports go to China, but 10% of our volume. But we saw the industry react at a far more aggressive level than that because of the uncertainty involved. We just didn't know what we don't know about that. So every decision, every customer was making conservative decisions. If they didn't need to, then they were going to keep the powder dry and make decisions. Kayinga and KBL's been in a position where it's had floating spot market fruit as opposed to the long-term contracts that you were set up with under AD&L. That afforded a situation where potentially we've been able to extract higher price points because you've had exactly what the market wants. Ron and the team, when we set this up, the vision to go Cabernet Shiraz Merlot, we've said this many times, it's exactly what the market wanted. And you had spades in large volumes and big companies were coming in sort of shopping that fruit. Overnight, that competitive advantage turned into almost a competitive disadvantage. And for the first time in my career, I had customers who I'm ringing saying, need some help with some fruit. Should have got any whites to sweeten the deal. I've never had that before. Never heard that. It's always been, you can on other operations, I'm trying to sell a few whites on the back of getting some big supply threads through. So it's that pivot that happened overnight that we had to work dynamically on. It'd be fair to say I've probably worked harder this year than I've ever worked to get the fruit away at sensible pricing. And I've relied on every one of those sort of 2-decade relationships that we've had in the industry. And I've leaned on it. I've asked for favours because, and I think that's important. And I guess we need to be careful. It's the way we sort of operate your business and ours more broadly, is to take that long-term view. Because it's easy to grab the baseball bat off each other when the market's swinging in one direction and we're not. But this is a long-run game. You've got a large capital investment. It's difficult to turn the Titanic varieties, grades, all of those things are difficult to turn overnight. So it's about having those long-term relationships, and we're lucky that we've got that. We've also got a broader base, so when I'm asked for whites, you don't have the whites, but I might have those whites on some other property that I can help that customer out to make the overall mix. And I unashamedly have always operated our business like that, and that allows us collectively, KBL and the other operations that I have to run, to be a big single stock entity for the major wine customers, the major wine buyers across the industry. So I expect that to continue. I expect it to continue to be hard, and Chris has alluded to some of the challenges. This is not going to right side overnight, and some of the key drivers behind why we're in this geopolitical situation aren't going to go away overnight. So I expect, and my team and I are working with an expectation that next year is going to be equally challenging, if not more. So, but we do have that view that this is, China's not going away, appetite for wine's not going away, but we've got a period where we have to prepare that to re-engineer the marketplace. The industry broadly is trying to do that. There's government incentives and funding to crack open new markets and explore that, but in reality, it's not like there's a whole segment of the world that the Australian wine industry doesn't tap. So we've got to be cognizant of the fact that, if there's no big fix, we can't just turn on country X and make this problem go away. So it's going to be about creatively finding growing markets, finding additional opportunities, favourably domestically where the industry is strong. But again, the reason why we've ended up at 40% exporting to China is because it's the most profitable market for most companies. So as Chris alluded to, we're under price pressure. I've seen the most rapid drop in prices this year that I've seen in my career, and that's a function of the destabilised market. That'll settle somewhere. We've also seen one of the bigger vintages we've seen. We've come off the back of 2 light vintages, and probably if I had a magic wand, I would ideally not like a big strong vintage because it would just stabilise things a little bit more, but that's the reality. We have to operate in the environment that we're in. Combine that with a global pandemic, and we're all aware of that. I would like to say in front of everybody, I appreciate Nick and Rusty pass on to our teams. But this time last year, we're in a situation like all of us in all of our businesses and our lives where we were hit with a whole next level shock. And we're in a situation where your business, our business here, you get one paycheck. You get one opportunity to get that paycheck, and it's to get the fruit on. We asked an enormous amount of our staff by saying, look, you need to restrict your bubble, your personal bubble. You need to help us get through this. We normally would cross-pollinate between our other regions. We had to keep little hubs and keep the guys isolated. So we just didn't know what we didn't know about how this was going to transpose. Like we had a situation where at the start of harvest, we had a problem, we're in big trouble, and there was a real risk to your fruit. So I'd say to Nick and the team and Rusty and everybody, thank you for making that extra effort that nobody really sees. It doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. Thanks, Nick. And similarly, we've all lived this and we all live it, but again, we're in a situation, and just a year overnight, we all understand we're only 1 metre away from a problem. We're in the same situation in this vintage as well. Unashamedly, we've operated the business very conservatively, trying to create as much risk buffer as we can for your business, because again, you're fronting up, you've got one check, you've got one opportunity to get your paycheck for the year. It's imperative that we hold together. So we're in that same situation, and I guess fingers crossed, touch wood, hopefully by the time we come around for the 2022 vintage, for all of our sites, that situation is stabilised a little bit more. The vintage was very long. The fact that there's 5 tonnes still out there, and we're standing here in April and we're at Anzac Day almost, that's indicative of a long drawn out season. And I'd encourage you, when we finish up, you've got this unique opportunity. As long as none of you have been in the vineyard for the last couple of weeks with your boots, we can go and taste a bit of fruit. I guess one advantage of having a long late vintage is you guys get that little bit of fruit. It takes a bit more skin off the team out there, but we've been fortunate with the rainfall and events, slow ripening crops, but Nick and the team have done a great job getting through the last bit. So we've come to the end point where we've actually delivered over budgeted tonnes. I don't know the exact figures because we haven't sort of looked at the weigh notes, but so from a production perspective, your vineyard has again been this rock solid producer of consistency. And as Chris alluded to, we've taken it from the pricing point of view. So we have a situation where that volatility reflects in our pricing point. So our revenue position is down. I think favourable from a water point. Again, I've stood in front of you for many years and talked a lot about water. I've got much greater things that keep me awake at night than the water at the moment. We're looking at the Indianates filling, we're looking at low water prices. I think, for the foreseeable future, we've got good solid water here, and it's just a matter of managing the market expectations as well. So I think those are the key points that I wanted to touch base on, and as usual, very comfortable to answer any questions that you might have. Just yell out anything that you would like. And again, as we finish, you might as well take the opportunity of Nick or myself or Rusty to take you out and teach you how we do culture, some basic fruit, and talk you through the process. But it's really not sure it's fruit. But it's today, Saturday, full of further this week. Any questions?
If you want to ask the director directly.
On the way in today, I noticed at Angus Vineyards, if you did double trellis lines, there was quite a large area where they appeared not to have harvested their grapes at all. Can you give a bit of an indication as to how many other vineyards perhaps have decided, because of the price of the China thing and everything else, just to leave the grapes on the vines?
Yeah, good question, Jeff. No one decides.
That's a question for the video, because I wanted to Jeff's.
Yeah, okay. So Jeff's question was in driving here today, some vineyards in Langmore Creek that still had obvious fruit left on the vine. At this point in time, the majority of that fruit is probably staying on the vine. And no one makes that decision actively. There's been a lot of movement in the market over the last couple of weeks with what I'll call sort of vulture acquisitions, where they're very low price point opportunities to sort of picking flesh off the bone. And but even some of that's dried up as you're trying to move. Most wineries are shutting down or moving down to the southeast to fill fermenters, being strong volumes of fruit, and to the point where a lot of the capacity in the wineries has been just full. So we'll see fruit left on the vine, and even if it was at a low price point, there was no homes for that because either wineries were full or they just didn't take an extra because the extra fruit was available, and they weren't going to speculate anymore on that. So I guess I can't give you an accurate percentage of that, but I'm aware that there'll be a fair amount of fruit swinging in that space there. I'd certainly know from, I was relying on some of our customer base to support it, and they're sort of almost going, pushing the friendship, using a lot of chips in the pocket. But we over-engineered off that, because I could see our guys we could see that there was a fair bit of fruit out there, so, some of the patches we tried to solve twice and then work out what we're doing with it afterwards. But if you hadn't sort of proactively done that, then and you were trying to chase market at the end of the harvest, it was tougher than I've ever seen really. So I'm not sure that gives you a definitive answer, Jeff, but it's
And perhaps a follow-up, any areas in South Australia that were affected like that more than others?
Yeah. Again, great question. Any areas in South Australia are affected more than others. So what I've seen, and we operate in most areas, what I saw was, and I'll be a bit geographic about it, and it's not absolute, but moved south at Barossa, and it got tougher the further south you moved. Also, there was some big rain events in New South Wales that knocked around a fair bit of fruit in that space, and we saw some people picking some of that fruit up, or substituting that fruit later in the season, so it was a bit of modified marketing there. But really, probably what I've found is we were still quite strong in the Barossa. We still had more demand for high-end premium stuff. I think that's twofold. There's a degree of insulation in that market, but also we're coming off a couple of very low vintages, so stock levels were down. So there was an element or an appetite of a bit of catch-up. When you head down into sort of what call it C-grade territory and beyond, then it's far more market impacted, and so it's really, I guess, say from south. Even I saw pricing drop in McLaren Park more acutely than I expected it to. Certainly in Langham Creek, we've had the double whammy of exposure to market, but big crops. And then I had one of the winemakers describe the southeast as a Cabernet. There was that much Cabernet down there, but so you know that's where they're sort of pulling up on some of that. And that's still getting harvested now. So pricing will fall, and it really depends upon the relationships you've got. If you've got long-term supply relationships, you're taking a hit, and you know some of those I'll market prices have dropped 25-30%. If you're in the spot market, then you know that's could double that drop away as well. So yeah, I think that the entry-level wine, a lot of that volume was going to the China market as well. So I suspect that sort of lower and medium price points will be my expectation where some of that will be dumped.
Yeah, my question is a bit more general. In the last 2 years or so, there have been a number of vineyards put up for sale in the area. If I remember correctly, the CMB, Lake Breeze, another one on Lake Plains Road. Are you aware if these sales progressed, and if so, what level of interest was shown?
Yeah, so again, good question. The question was, there's been some vineyards in the region for sale over the last couple of years. And so quite large vineyards, some big assets that went to the market. A few years ago, the Bernard Ricard vineyard transacted, was a sale and leaseback, and that executed. That's sort of, I'll call it off market. It's not really off market, but it's a financially engineered position. There's some big vineyards that have hit the market and not been sold. And so I'm aware that those situations have been negotiated and there's been willing, negotiations, but they haven't transacted from a price point of view. That's sort of pre-China as well. And so it'll be interesting to see how that market is impacted. Common sense says to me that potentially valuations come under pressure in that environment. And that's what we've seen in the past as the market declines, and there's a re-rationalisation of that as well. So historically we were operating on about 164,000 hectares as an industry. As the supply-demand situation dissolved or came under pressure, we retreated as an industry to around about 124,000 hectares, and we've been sort of slowly modifying, not rapidly growing again, but sort of replanting old vineyard, been creeping up a bit, but we're still well off the peak of what the industry was. But and that's probably a bit of a buffer for us, but I'm under no illusion that potentially, if you put your vineyard on the market tomorrow, I know which side of the negotiating table I prefer to be on in that context.
Chris, as a long-time investor and ambassador for this winery, is there ever going to be, can I be an ambassador for your chocolate factory?
I'm not sure we get talking about the chocolate factory, but it's our chocolate factory too. There's a lot of people that are owners of it, but you can always be an ambassador for chocolates. And someone said to me, they went up there this week and basically weren't looked after because they said, we're from Kayinga. And our staff up there went, who? If you'd actually said to them, we're from Fable, they would have known who you were and they would have looked after you even better than they did. They still said they were looked after, but not as well as they should have been. So, if anyone wants to, my wife, right there, Sandy, she sells and marketing for the chocolates. She'll look after all of you so that when you get through the front door, there'll be something special for you, okay?
I thought they put the price up, but they didn't say it.
What else, guys? Any other queries or questions?
General question, we're all getting older and greyer. How is Kayinga, terribly important to us, how are they going at making sure they bring back young talent and things? So sooner or later you're both going to drop off the birch tree. Is there something brilliant coming up?
I had a rude shock this morning. I was, well, that's that in two ways. I was over giving a presentation to a group of university students at one of our other sites. And Russ's sister was over there, and she asked me if I was the same age as Russ. And Russ has got 15 years on there. Yeah, it has been a hard vintage. Interesting, not that you will, but if you went on Seek at the moment, we've got an ad out for what I call an emerging manager. So, and I've specifically targeted the ad, saying whether you're an experienced vineyard guy, career changer, new to the business, but you're keen, you're looking to grow a career in a great industry, we'll teach you what you need to know, but we're going to, so we bring these guys in, guys or girls, agnostic as to age group, really just being passionate about building a career in what I think is a fantastic environment where you get great mix of commercial, technical, and so really we're trying to farm that on a continual basis. At Fable, probably pretty uniquely, we've got 3 of our staff undertaking a degree at Charles Sturt University, which they do, it's online, but they can spend that, and because although we lose them for that period and it costs us a few bucks, in my experience, we've got many of us that are examples of that, and where we get these passionate people and invest in them, and I guess in reality, I think we've got pretty sticky staff, and we're very, very lucky to have really great people that treat the vineyard as if it's their own. And but you're right, we're all getting older, and we do need to continue to refresh that.
I actually will say something here.
Of course.
I haven't used by date. Good question. And for the last 10 years, I've been instructing a group of people who are more talented than I am, which includes a youngster who is 10 years younger than I am, just to the right of me, right? And we've recently employed another group of people, very talented people that will help both Fable and Kayinga deal with whatever difficulties we've got now. And they're another half a generation younger than Ash. So at a corporate level, if that is important to you as well, we have the next generation of talent already there. We've got everybody from Ash with 21 years under his belt to the new CFO who's half a generation younger than Ash, and another talented person we've grabbed from a great wine company in McLaren Vale, who's come in and just made enormous differences to the whole group. Just a different way of thinking, whether it be in the vineyard, accounting for what we do there, or in our wine part of the business, or whether we get to the retail chocolates and wine and everything else. He's made a massive change in just 1 year and 2 months. He's supported by another very talented young man, just a few years younger than him, who will work out in China with us, right? And he's Indigenous Chinese, and came to Australia 14 years ago to study and didn't want to go home, and we are blessed to have him below Daniel in our finance team. But he's also driving our marketing agenda in China, which is not dead. It's not buried, it's actually got a heartbeat, but let's just see where that goes. So to say to you that we're not thinking about working with all of you as long as you want to be here and your future, and I see children here today and back here in front of us, you know, I'm really, really pleased that people care about it enough to bring their kids and be involved. So we're looking forward to looking after you, but if you choose to hand it to the next generation, we're ready to look after that generation of your family as well as the one after. I will say unashamedly, I have a 25-year-old and a 28-year-old. They are both shareholders in all of the different entities that we're involved with, and some of them are interested in our business, some of them aren't. There's 6 of them in total, 2 of mine, 2 of Sandy's and a couple more. But what we're suggesting to you is they are a generation behind us and half a generation behind the team. If they're interested in the business, they are very talented young people as well, even if we say so as proud parents. And so I, after 39 years at Fable, and I'm only 59, so you can work out how old I was when I started it, am very sure that we have your best interests and Fable's best interests covered for between half a generation and a generation, and most of us won't be here by then, so we probably won't care. But I do, so we're going forward with that. So whether it be a corporate question or whether it be a specific vineyard question, we're happy to answer anything. We'll throw out one thing that we've been coy about today, but the board spent a lot of time working with yesterday. We're going to continue to beautify the vineyard. We've got our new area here that you can see what we do when we start with the right tools and the right trade, but we don't have a lot of land that's of the quality of the top part of this block behind us that we can still plant. Our old vineyard is not aged to the degree that we need to pull it out. It's aged to the degree that we didn't have the best materials available to us in the late 90s, and we've got serious problems with trellises, which we've told you about for many years. Ashley's come up with a defined program that's going to give a complete renewal to a block so we can see what it looks like. That means both the trellis and it means the vines themselves, which will set this up to be useful to the next generation as well. So we're going to have a combination of new vines in old patches, vines that have had the heads chopped off them in old patches and renewed cordons coming out. So there is massive thinking going on and minimal money being spent to be regenerating these vineyards. So it's not as if it's going to be thrown in a scrap heap and not be useful, but we do have this horrible trellis that we have to deal with everywhere, and it's a catch-22 whether we start from scratch or whether we try to continue to renew. So do you want to say anything more on that, or do you want to drop that one in? So Fable as a group that works for you, it's warts and all. The independent directors are all over this in representing you and your best interests, but we're not hiding anything from the group at large. If there's good, there's good. This is a great vineyard, 3,300 tonnes of grapes, year in, year out for 20 years. It's a testament to our people, our technology, and just a lot of good planting of the right varieties all those years ago. So there's a great number of really positive things about this vineyard that we love. We've overcome most of the hurdles that have been set upon us that we can control, but some of these ones we can't control, just set us back in our backsides, and we have to get up and we have to fight again. We have in the past, and we'll do it right now for you again. I thank you, but we're not doing it. We don't do it for the applause. We don't do it for the money. Your Nick and everybody around Nick, above Nick, below Nick, wherever, treat this as their own properties, and they would do the same if they were on their own properties. So that's what we're employed to do, but it's what we love to do as well. So what I'm suggesting is let's mill, let's talk to each other, let's do what we want. The questions seem to have dried up, so what I'm suggesting is we'll call this part to an end so Chris gets to
push his hands down and not get too much cramp. And there's a lot of lovely food still here if you want seconds, particularly the youngsters here who probably still got hollow knees and lots more. But for us old blokes who want it, please come and grab it as well. I just want to tell you one little story. I've got this will be 2 minutes. A friend of my daughter's came to my daughter and said, "Is there any chance of me doing my work experience at the end of my degree at Fable?" And I said, "Well, there is, but I can't make that decision because that's conflict. And go and visit Ash and David," which she did. And 5 months later, she's just gone back to uni to finish her degree. She's learned a heap. She says, "Becca, I've learned more in 5 months than the previous 3 years." She's that potential, whether Ash and David want her, I don't know, and Nick wants her, I don't know. But she's 25. That's that next generation of talented person that could be on your vineyard coming up with a whole lot of new ideas, and not to take into place, but to assist Nick or whoever else, that is there that Ash watches for all the time. So be aware that those little stories are repeated every day when we look at people. The person we have lost has resigned after 17 years because he comes 50 minutes every day both ways. He says, "I'm going to start a career business in the Adelaide Hills just where I live." All right? So we haven't lost a Fable/Clay, like it's a real person, married person. We haven't lost a person somewhere else. We've lost a person in their new career, their new generation. And what that's done is give Ash an opportunity to renew without putting anybody who knows how to do it. And I think that's a great story to end on if everyone's happy with that.
Guys, if you want to come out, I'll maybe take a small group now. We'll go and taste a bit of fruit, and I'll talk you through as if we're turning into viticulturists, and then maybe if you don't need to rush out, Nick might do the same thing, and we'll taste a bit of Shiraz.